I'm Gab. He's Jules. Blue skies over West London. None of us are nervous about the playoffs or anything, but so let's put that to one side. We'll get to that later. There are some big games coming up. Big news also for Barcelona with Rafinha being out just as they enter this kind of crucial stretch of games. We'll get to all that. But let's start with something that we knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
You said it. I think you kind of said it like every show since like for the past months. Igor Tudor is no longer the Tottenham Hotspur manager. I think it's probably safe to say the decision was made after the defeat to Nottingham Forest. And then they gave themselves a little bit of time. Obviously, he suffered the death of his father. The funerals were held on Wednesday. And eventually the announcement comes out today. But Jules, I think I'm right in saying we both believe that Spurs started looking for his replacement before that,
yeah, surely. I mean, I think they were
after
just
Sunday at a minimum.
Yeah, exactly. They were ironing out like last details of the mutual sort of consent to part ways, and
but you can talk to other people while you do that. Tudor's a grown up. He knew it was coming.
Yeah, exactly. For example, I think Adi Hutter, who's got quite a good chance, I think, to get this job. Was contacted after the Forest defeat. So I think on the Monday or the Tuesday of last week, so a week ago, really. So I think they've put feelers out. I think they've been talking to Roberto De Zerbi as well, who they ideally would love for him to come now. And completely understandably, he wants to wait for the summer and know where they are and what the conditions are and the context. But the good thing in a way is that they have 2 weeks now without a game because they're not playing in the FA Cup next weekend. So that's the weekend off. So their next league game is in 2 weeks' time. So plenty of time for whoever is the new interim coach to come in and...
Well, you say interim coach.
Oh, permanent.
But it could be permanent, yeah?
No.
The Zerbi's not going to come to be an interim coach.
He's the only one, really. But all the other names that they would like, from Iraola to Glasner to Marcos Silva to Poch, obviously are not available now.
Right. What about Hutter?
So Hutter is not at the level of De Zerbi. I think that's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So it seems to me that the choice here is pretty binary in the sense that you either get a coach now, and that would be sort of the Zerbi option, or you get a coach just for these 7 days, and you have to look at this, or 7 games rather. For me, the decision's pretty obvious. Get a coach for 7 games. I don't think the structural problems at this club. I don't think any coach, even if you got Pep Guardiola or Carlo Ancelotti, they're not going to have the coaching impact in terms of tactics and preparation because there just aren't enough games left to do that. So you're just looking for somebody that can rally the players. The players are much better than the people around them. I don't even know that you need to get an interim coach. But if you can get, I mean, certainly Sean Dyche, who's been mentioned, but Dyche isn't going to come for 7 games, is he?
I don't know.
Would you if you were Dyche?
No, I don't. I'm not sure really what he wants and where he stands right now. He might fancy the challenge. There's probably you can negotiate a really good bonus if you keep them up, to be fair, I think. So that might attract him. I would not go for that. I think right now as well, whatever happens, they need somebody as well who knows the club, whether that's somebody like Ryan Mason, for example, coming back to the club where he spent a long time as a player, as an assistant coach, even as an interim coach, whether you kind of get the support of somebody like Ben Davies, who's injured, so cannot play, but he's obviously a big figure in that dressing room.
And
whether
has
you
his
even
coaching
bring...
badges.
As his coaching badges, but he would not be I think he would be part of a coaching staff. I don't think he would be the main coach, probably. But although I would like to see that. Maybe even like another former player who's not there anymore. I'm not talking like, Tim Sherwood or Harry Redknapp, but those kind of profiles. Yeah, but those kind of guys who know the club really well, I think are probably important right now, considering the situation.
For me, in some ways, if you can't get De Zerbi, and De Zerbi said he doesn't want to take over at this stage. Yeah. He wants to take over in the summer, which I think is understandable, but maybe a negotiating stance. For me, the logical thing would be, like you said, if you need an inspirational figure to give speeches as like a figurehead, sure, maybe Glenn Hoddle will come in and do that. Go with Bruno Saltor, who's there, who's been part of it.
Yeah.
This team is not built for Sean Dyche type football. And if you can have Ben Davies as part of your staff, but Ben Davies, who has, like you said, he's got coaching badges, go from there and really challenge the players to get their way out of it. But we're going to break this down further on the Gavin Jules podcast and kind of ask, what does giant of English football have to do to get back where they belong? All right, Jules, let's try to get a better understanding here. I think from what you said, we're both in agreement that if you're not going to get the Zerbi now, we want to go interim. In terms of the Zerbi, we've touched upon this before. I think it's critical that you have the right environment for him because he can be a difficult person, as we've seen in his last two clubs, in fact. And I think that's certainly something to consider in terms of long-term appointment because right now the stuff upstairs is not stable at all. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But in terms of the type of players that they already have, they've invested a lot of money in younger players and whatever. The Zerbi's probably a fit in some ways. On the other hand, we were talking off air, you mentioned, well, but there's a lack of creativity, and the Zerbi likes his creative players. Flip side, Madison and Kulusevski. I'm assuming we'll be back. I thought Kulusevski would be back by now. Can that kind of balance it out if we're projecting forward to next season?
Yeah, definitely. It would be a better team and a better squad with Madison and Kulusevski on the pitch, especially in terms of creativity. I think there's still some issues to address in that squad, and they can do that in the summer if they stay up, especially if they go down to the championship. It's going to be messy, but if they stay up, they will be able to address whoever the new manager is, what he wants, and what kind of position he thinks that there's problem there. There will also be, you would think, players leaving anywhere in the summer, so they will have a bit of a rebuilding to do. And that's great. But before even that, they need to make sure that they're staying up because, again, if they go down, this is not going to be pretty.
You talk about players leaving, and I don't have the contract expiries and stuff. The tricky thing is the players who, a lot of these guys are coming off injuries this season. And in terms of assets where you could say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice him to get a big transfer fee in, or even players who haven't played well, I'm going to find somebody to take him away. I think it's a little bit tough. I don't know that they have all this flexibility because, for example, Wilson Odebear, who we both love, if you decide he's not going to be part of your first team plans, the guy's going to be coming off an injury. Kudus is now coming back, but again, you just signed him, so presumably it's not him. Solanke, then you still need to find a center forward. You got to resolve the Kolomoani situation. There's some really, really big calls to make. I don't know how much flexibility they're going to have over the summer that they can just move 10 guys out.
No, I mean, more players wanting to leave. I think Van der Ven will want to leave. I think Romero will want to leave. I think there's a couple of others who would want to leave, especially if there's no European football next season. And even more if you're in the championship. So if you're in the championship, it's going to be messy and everybody will want to leave and the club will have to let a lot of them go. If you stay up, I still expect some to say, I don't want to be here next season anyway.
Seriously wonder what the market's going to be like with Romero because of the amount of, certainly, or the internal market here in England, because of the negativity that he's gotten through his many red cards. Frankly, Van de Ven too. Van de Ven's had moments where he's clearly glitched. He's not had as many red cards. And when you're at a big club in England and you have those situations and you're on high wages, I don't think you're going to move to another big English club. And then you talk about Europe, and then, again, you're talking about Premier League wages. It's hard. There's not that many places, right?
They're Tottenham wages, not really like top Premier League wages either. I think there's a market for both of them. For Van der Ven in England, still sure. For Romero, not so much. I agree with you, and he's older too. But I don't think it'd be a problem. I think there will be suitors for them both. Other players in there, not so sure, especially after the bad season they've had. But I think there will be, even if they stay up, I think there will be a lot of tweaking and rebuilding to do with that squad. And that is needed anyway.
And that brings us to the next question. With the start of the season, they had this set up with Fabio Paratici as an outside investor outside consultant. And you can, because of his ban, and you can think of him whichever way you want to think, but undoubtedly he has a lot of experience and he has a big track record with hits and misses. And he was with Johan Lange, who I'm assuming Johan Lange was instrumental in bringing in Thomas Frank.
Yes.
Probably Johnny Heitinga too. Actually, we haven't mentioned him.
Yeah,
is he definitely out of his club? I know he's not there at the club, but are the clubs still paying him? Because
No.
You might have wanted to keep him around.
Yeah, maybe
it might have come in handy.
Now, yeah.
But this speaks to a situation where, Johan Lange, I think, has to bear a lot of the responsibility for what happened. Daniel Levy is gone. The Lewis kids have kind of gone from one disaster to the other. If I'm a coach, especially an in-demand guy, if I'm Iraola, for example, or frankly the Zerbi, even though he's unemployed, I'm going to want some answers, some explanation. If the Lewis kids were, let's say kids, they're older than we are, but if they were here and they said, Jules, what do we need to fix here? What do we need to be looking at apart from individual players?
I think it's a big project there. I don't think the club is in that bad of a position in the sense that there's a lot of really new people and I think talented people in key positions in the offices. From Vinay Venkateswaran, who I think is very good and I think needs just a bit more time because it's been difficult for him since he arrived and since Daniel Levy left. But I think in key position, they've put good people in, really. It's just, he needs a bit of time.
Is that much of a Johan Lange fan?
I don't know Johan Lange, but so far he hasn't been great.
Right.
But so I mean, in the offices, not the kind of football side of it.
On the business side.
Yeah, everything. Because this club needs an identity that then will obviously drip onto the pitch, onto the players. You need the right coach that is in line. And we say that often, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but owners in a way, but CEO, sporting director, manager have to be all aligned on the same page, being on the same page to take any club forward, really. And that has not been the case because of all the changes and because I think some people were the wrong pick sometimes. Now it's an opportunity for them, especially if they stay up, obviously, again, that they get that right. If they get that right, I think the rest will follow. It will take time, sure, because now Arsenal and City and Liverpool and Chelsea, even Chelsea to some extent, are way ahead of Spurs. But you need to get that right before getting the rest right, including, obviously, the next coach.
I take your point. You need to get that right. You need to at least have a plan. I don't think you can, because ultimately you have to get results on the pitch, and so you don't go down or you don't have another season of chaos where you sack managers. I think you're not going to get it right between now and June. I think the most you can do between now and June is convince them that this is a plan.
Yeah.
And this is the way forward, and get them to buy into your plan. As far as Vinay is concerned, I would love to know, and feel free to message me. Was he clear on the fact that Daniel Levy was going to go when he took over? Because there's a big difference in taking a job where you're going to have a major shareholder who's going to be constantly involved, and it's more of a collaborative that's the reality of it. Some people might not like it. People might say, I don't know, I want to be the big boss. Okay. Versus taking a job where you have total autonomy of decisions, or as much as CEO is going to have, right?
Yeah.
Is this a different approach? And if he's had to pivot because he didn't know, because he thought Daniel Levy was going to be there every day, then that adds a lot more onto his plate. Daniel Levy, of course, getting involved in the football decisions and whatever. I think that is something that they need to answer. Johan Lange, frankly, at this stage, I always hesitate with directors of football because you never know how many of these signings, were entirely theirs, how many were, the manager or the guy above him. They're always in between, right? But clearly faith in this guy is very low right now.
Yeah.
There were reports that they talked about bringing in a second director of football to help him out. I don't know why people are following the Chelsea model. One person made the point, well, Chelsea's sporting directors are individually, they're actually very good. Together, they're probably less than the sum of their parts, but one big advantage is if they're working for Chelsea, they can't be working for other clubs.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's another way, I guess, to accumulate talent. It feels weird to me that we've had 2 consecutive seasons of Spurs, a traditional Big Six club, punching so far below their weight, and it's got to feel weird to you too, like that we're actually talking about them. I mean, last year they weren't going to get relegated because it was such a gap. This year, this is a relegation spat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, things go really quickly in football. We know it, especially when you make wrong decisions, when there's a lot of interferences in your club, when your club is dysfunctional, like Spurs is right now, and has been not just now, but for a few years as well. And it's incredible to see. There's a few others big name clubs in other of our leagues that are also struggling. That could go down in Fiorentina for a long time, Sevilla or Valencia, But when you have the money that Spurs have, even if they still have to pay for the stadium, and that takes a lot of their revenues away and things like that, it's still incredible to see them with Wolves and Burnley. And, they've at home this season, they're the worst team in the league with Wolves. Burnley have won more points at home than Spurs. Wolves have taken the same amount of points at home in the Premier League than Spurs. Spurs are at the level of Wolves and Burnley right now, which is something that I never thought we would ever say.
Yeah, obviously injuries also play
of
the part.
course.
We've been saying it all season. I think one of the big differences, and Fiorentina are kind of figuring it out now.
And they'd be
a little
okay.
bit.
Yeah.
Sevilla and Valencia, slightly different situations because you've got people operating on historically big clubs operating on shoestring budgets.
Yeah.
And one of them with an owner who I think is the spawn of Satan, and the other one with owners who are fighting among each other all the time. So it's not a good situation here. At least you have owners who are in charge, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're good owners or bad owners, and they can give the positive impetus. But to me, there has to be real clarity on who's responsible for what going forward. Because as a coach, if you're the Zerbi, I don't know that you can, and you're ambitious and whatever. If you make a false move here, if you go into the wrong environment, this could really hurt you. On the flip side with Zerbi, I want to get just your take on this, because people in the media have made a really big deal out of this over the fact that when he was at Marseille with Mason Greenwood, he talked about Mason Greenwood. Now, the background with Mason Greenwood, for those who don't know, is he was being investigated for sexual assault on his longtime girlfriend.
Yeah.
Pictures were leaked or made public anyway. Of
voice notes
and voice notes especially. Eventually, I think probably because I'm in legal territory here, but as I understand it, the girlfriend and the girlfriend's family opted not to prosecute.
Yeah.
The investigation into him was dropped.
Yeah, that's right.
Which in some ways is bad for him. Well, it's good for him because he's not going to prison. It's bad for him in the sense that he never got clarity. He never got sort of, found not guilty.
Yeah.
Did Zerbi praise Greenwood? Not for this incident,
no,
obviously,
the player,
but praised him as a player.
Yeah.
Apparently, several different Spurs groups have come out. And
I saw that this weekend. Yeah, they won't Zerbi there for that.
How seriously, as a club, would you need to take something like that? That when this guy was at another, I'll give you my take.
Yeah,
this guy was there to coach another club. He didn't go out of his way to sign Mason Greenwood. You speaking on him as a player. The police decided that to drop the investigation. He's not coming out and expressing a judgment on what happened.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit harsh, because what's he supposed to say?
Maybe.
I wish Mason Greenwood wasn't here with me in Marseille because I don't like the story.
He could have decided not. He could have said to the club, "Don't sign him." That's for sure. He went along. He was happy for the club to sign. He gave his green light when Mason was there, and Mason was very good for him on the pitch. He was praising him all the time. Like future Ballon d'Or winner and world-class player, all that kind of stuff.
So he went over the top, you're saying?
I'm not saying that, but maybe he didn't need to go that far,
Right.
And things like that. He knew very well how controversial this was in France. Anyway, the mayor of Marseille himself told Marseille publicly, the club and De Zerbi and Pablo Longoria, everybody, that there was no room for Greenwood in Marseille. They didn't want the club to sign him. They still signed him. So I can maybe see that side from the Spurs fans' point of view. But it's also a different context. He's not coming with Mason Greenwood to
Right.
Spurs, well, at least not that we know. So it might be a bit harsh, and I don't know. But we also know that this Greenwood is situation, incident, or whatever, is very sensitive here in the UK. We've always said that,
Right.
So I'm not too surprised either, to be fair.
Yeah, it's funny because before in the Levy era, and by the way, when I mentioned Daniel Levy, Daniel Levy got a ton of things wrong over the years. Just top of my head, the Gattuso, Nuno Espirito Santo, Paulo Fonseca fiasco, where he's not sure what he's going to do, and
Yeah.
But I think I think we've seen in the past, and the backlash to some of these people, that it is something that Spurs fans, probably because they don't just care about winning, they also care about their club. It has, and this is something that you get, and I don't want to go and diss people who don't regularly go to games because they happen not to live in the Premier League or La Liga, wherever they support. There are certain people who just care about winning. And there are others for whom the club is much more important. It is part of their tradition and maybe reflects their values. That's how they see themselves, rightly or wrongly. And I think there's certainly a loud vocal minority of people who, or maybe even a majority of Spurs fans, regular match-going Spurs fans, who feel that way. And so I think that's why this issue is so important to them.
Yeah.
Whether it's something to beat the Zerbi with over the head for the rest of his life. Like you said, it would be different if Mason Greenwood were coming.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's wrap this with the percentages.
Yeah.
We kind of have to. All right, we're assuming Burnley and Wolves are down, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So we've got Forest.
Yeah.
We have Leeds.
Yeah.
We have Spurs.
And West Ham.
And West Ham. All right, the clock is ticking. Would you like me to go first?
No, I'm happy to go first. I mean, I've said it before. Anyway, nothing has changed for me. I actually think that
they lost at home to Forest and nothing's changed.
No, because I thought they would stay up before, and I think they still stay up now. I think sacking Tudor is the right thing to do anyway.
You'll get a dead cat bounce
because he was out of his depth. I mean, he was out of his depth anyway. There, he was. When I thought he was going to improve the team, he made it worse. And it's me getting it wrong. What he did in Marseille, I thought was quite positive, and I just thought he could have a positive impact on this team, and clearly not. So I got it wrong, and he got it wrong massively. So I think they have more chances without him to stay up than with him anyway. I still see Leeds going down. I'm sorry, Leeds fans. I'm not convinced, even with the kind of little cushion that they have over the other three right now. So I would go for 40% Leeds, and then obviously 20.
Okay, I'm going to go. All right, I've gone higher on Leeds. I'm going Leeds 50%. West Ham 25%, Forest 20%, and Spurs 5%. But clearly, as the saying goes, they need to pull their finger out.